Welcome back to TPRM 101, a guide for creating and enhancing your third-party risk management program. In today's video, we will cover risk remediation, the fifth section of the pre-contract due diligence phase. If you have not done so already, be sure to watch part 1 of this video, as we covered several sections within pre-contract due diligence which are relevant to the phase as a whole. These videos will help you better understand the foundations of building a comprehensive third-party risk management program. Next, you will formally document and mitigate risks discovered within third-party risk assessments, thereby minimizing potential negative impacts on your organization. Documentation allows for a structured and objective assessment of risks. By quantifying the impact and likelihood of these risks, you can prioritize them and allocate resources more effectively. Documenting risks also facilitates the development of mitigation strategies by providing a roadmap for how your organization plans to reduce the risks discovered. It also enables transparent communication with the third party and relevant stakeholders within your organization. Regulatory requirements often mandate the identification and management of third-party risks. Proper documentation helps demonstrate compliance with these regulations and ensures good governance practices. Risk remediation is crucial for any TPRM program, as it is the reason why the program exists. Sometimes programs can get hung up on assessing risk and not mitigating risk. Once risk is discovered, your organization is now liable if you do not follow up and work to mitigate it. Risk remediation can look different for each organization. For some organizations, the TPRM team finds the risks and the business owner follows up on that risk. For other organizations, the TPRM team finds and works to remediate the risk. Regardless as to how your organization chooses to identify and mitigate third-party risk, it is important the process be consistent and effective, with all relevant stakeholders informed of risk mitigation strategies along the way. Let's take a look at some suggested risk remediation strategies. Establish a process for documenting and following up on risks identified from third-party risk assessments performed. Ensure you outline how risks will be monitored and mitigated over time. Regularly assess the effectiveness of mitigation efforts and adjust strategies as needed. Formally document all risks identified. Create a standardized template or format for documenting risks. This format can include fields for the risk description, risk category, impact assessment, likelihood assessment, risk score, and any relevant notes. Template fields can include a risk description, which clearly describes each risk including its source, nature, and potential consequences. In this, you should provide context and details that help others understand the risk. Risk category, in which you categorize each risk into relevant groupings such as financial, operational, compliance, legal, or reputational. This categorization helps in organizing and prioritizing risks. Impact assessment. This is to evaluate the potential impact of each risk on your organization. Use a scale or scoring system to quantify the impact, such as low, medium, or high. Likelihood assessment. This is to assess the likelihood of each risk materializing. Again, use a scale or scoring system, such as rare, occasional, or frequent, to quantify the likelihood. And finally, risk score. Calculate a risk score by multiplying the impact and likelihood assessments. This score helps prioritize risks. For each documented risk, outline risk mitigation expectations. These expectations should be broad in nature and not prescriptive, but detailed enough to communicate your organization's expectations for risk mitigation by the third party. Communicate the documented risks and mitigation expectations to the third party for validation of the risk and finalization by the third party of the risk mitigation plan. Once risks are validated and mitigation plans are finalized, document the risk within the central repository and assign responsibility for managing the remediation of the risk. For high or critical risks, ensure that the documented risk and mitigation plans are reviewed and approved by relevant stakeholders, including senior management, legal, compliance, and risk management teams. Regularly follow up with the third party to ensure sufficiency and timeliness of risk mitigation efforts. You may want to consider setting service levels for the remediation of risk. For example, you may want high risk to be remediated within 30 days. If remediation falls outside of that timeline, then you may implement the risk acceptance process. If service levels are defined, then they should also be noted within a contract with the third party. Once the third party notes the remediation plan is complete and mitigation efforts were successful, request evidence proving such is the case. Specify the types of documentation or evidence you require. This might include reports, logs, configurations, test results, or any other relevant records. Be precise in your requirements to avoid misunderstandings. It is important that you obtain actual evidence of risk remediation efforts in lieu of an attestation to appropriately validate that risks were mitigated to your organization's satisfaction. Ensure evidence for remediated risks is maintained within the repository. And finally, ensure that the third-party risk remediation process is integrated into your organization's broader risk management framework and practices. Here is an example of a written finding with a seeded and confirmed action plan. As you can see, this includes the risk category, description, rating, action plan and target date, and the risk rating upon remediation. By following these steps, you can ensure that you obtain actual evidence of risk remediation efforts, validate their success, and maintain a secure and compliant relationship with your third-party partners. We hope you found this episode of TPRM 101 beneficial and informative. Our next video will cover risk escalation and/or acceptance, Section 6 of the pre-contract due diligence phase. Thanks for watching!